Welcome, dear viewers, to the Lost in Time channel. The awakening of an old mother, a heartbreaking but realistic life story. Dear audience, according to our traditional beliefs, having children is meant to ensure that we will be cared for in old age. Over time, this belief has gradually eroded, and more elderly people are beginning to explore new ways to take care of themselves. However, deep in the hearts of many parents, they still firmly believe that being cared for by their children in old age is their greatest desire. And that is precisely why they have children. Many people also believe that it is natural and legally mandated for children to take care of their parents. Therefore, raising children as a form of security for old age has been deeply ingrained in their hearts. However, as time changes, if certain ideas do not yield the desired results, they eventually fade away. Nowadays, many elderly people rely on their children for support in their later years, but most ultimately feel disappointed. So, in the end, how should one take care of themselves in old age? And who can truly take care of us? A 70-year-old mother, Mrs. Mary Thompson, has provided an answer based on her own experience. The words of Mary Thompson: "After living in my son's house for 3 years, I finally realized who can truly take care of me. Here are the things I want to share. My name is Mary Thompson. I am 70 years old and have been retired for 15 years. My husband passed away over 10 years ago, and I now live alone in the old house we once shared in town. I am still doing well. I have a place to stay and a small pension to sustain my life. However, living alone can sometimes feel a bit lonely. Many people wonder why I do not live with my child at my age. Some women in my community group have even tried to persuade me, saying that if my child is financially capable, I should stay with him. Otherwise, I should at least consider living nearby in case of emergencies. But this is not as easy as it sounds. Honestly, I did try living with my son. My husband and I only had one child, a son who is now over 40 years old. He moved to another province years ago to establish his career and later started a family. He now has a happy family of 3. After my husband passed away, I moved in with my son to help them with cooking and taking care of my son, his wife, and my grandchild. At that time, my thoughts were simple. I just wanted to help my son while I was still healthy so that he would appreciate and cherish me more. It was a simple expectation. Perhaps many parents today think the same way, don't they? However, while it was a beautiful thought, reality did not unfold as expected. In the first few months at my son's house, the 4 of us got along well. I was busy going to the market, cooking, and managing the household chores. My son and daughter-in-law worked hard to earn a living, and my grandchild focused on studies. Everything seemed normal. My son and daughter-in-law were also very considerate of me. Besides giving me a monthly allowance for groceries, they provided me with an additional $1,000 for personal expenses, clothing, shoes, and other necessities. At that time, I enjoyed my life with my children and grandchildren, believing that my future would always remain the same. But as time passed, my son, daughter-in-law, and grandson gradually became more dependent on me. Over time, they lost the initial care and enthusiasm they once had. What remained were only whispers and gossip. My eldest grandson is now 15 years old and preparing for his high school entrance exams. My daughter-in-law asked me to look after him, but the rebellious boy showed me no respect. He often claimed he was doing homework but would shut the door and play on the computer or games instead. How could I not be angry? I couldn't hold it in. His academic performance kept declining. When my daughter-in-law noticed, she blamed me for spoiling him too much, saying that I was home all day but didn't care about his studies. The silent conflicts in the family. I tried to explain, but my daughter-in-law wouldn't listen. She said, "Mom, you spoil him too much. If he fails the entrance exams and can't get into a public school, we'll have to pay for an expensive private school." Because of this, the pressure on my son and daughter-in-law increased, and the gossip behind my back intensified. Whenever my grandson had to pay large tuition fees at the beginning of the school year, my daughter-in-law would take the opportunity to tell my son, "It's your mother who spoiled him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to spend so much money." In reality, this was just one of the many small issues in daily life. My relationship with them was like two opposing forces. No matter what I did, they would always find a reason to dislike me. I always cooked the way I had for years without making any major changes. But a month ago, my daughter-in-law told me that while my cooking was delicious, it was also wasteful. She pointed out that I often had leftovers after dinner. I suggested storing them in the fridge overnight and reheating them in the microwave for breakfast. They responded, "Leftover food won't taste good the next day. Bacteria will grow, and it's bad for our health." I replied, "If eating overnight food was harmful, then back in our days when we had no refrigerators and ate the same pot of soup for days, wouldn't we all have fallen sick?" But my daughter-in-law dismissed my words immediately. "Mom, that was old knowledge. You can't compare the past to how we live now. You're too stubborn and don't understand food safety." The growing tensions. Every weekend, my son and daughter-in-law liked to sleep in. I had no objection to that. It's rare for them to have time off, and they deserve to relax. But because they slept late, I had to tiptoe around the house like a cat. Even the slightest noise would prompt a reminder from my daughter-in-law. On weekends, I couldn't wake up early to do the laundry or watch TV. My only choices were to take a morning walk or stay in bed and sleep late like them. It was a frustrating way to live, especially for someone like me who was used to staying active. In reality, I could adapt to such a lifestyle on regular days. But my son and daughter-in-law's attitude toward me made it unbearable. I had not even lived there for half a year before my daughter-in-law started acting like a housekeeper, constantly finding fault with me. Every day, she would say that I was unhygienic. I had to separate my laundry into two categories. Regular clothes and jeans could go into the washing machine, but undergarments and socks had to be washed separately. Undergarments carry bacteria. If you wash them with other clothes, they won't be clean. At first, I didn't understand and thought my daughter-in-law was too picky. But after washing my clothes my way a few times, she became displeased and told my son. After that, my son scolded me. In the end, I had no choice but to comply and wash them separately. Unknowingly, this became yet another chore. While it wasn't exhausting, it felt unnecessary. Even the kitchen became an issue. Every time I washed vegetables, I had a habit of collecting the used water in a large bucket so I could later use it to clean instead of wasting it. However, my children couldn't stand it and said, "What's the point of saving such a small amount of water? If guests come over and see this, it'll be embarrassing, like we can't afford to pay our water bill." When I fell ill, they didn't show any concern. Instead, they scolded me. "Mom, you got sick because you weren't careful. We told you not to go dancing in the mornings. It's easy to catch a cold and wastes money too. There's plenty to do at home." Whenever I was frustrated with my daughter-in-law, I always wanted to argue with her. But then I thought, if I fought with her, the one caught in the middle would be my son. It might even affect their marriage. In the end, I was the one who stayed silent. Living with my son wasn't exactly lonely, but after a long time, I felt it was better to live alone in my hometown. Life wasn't what I expected. Most days, they were either at work or at school, leaving me alone in the house. They also assigned me many household chores, essentially turning me into their maid. That was fine, but even if I did everything well, I never received a kind word. If I didn't follow their way, they would be dissatisfied and even reprimand me. They claimed that I lived there rent-free, with meals covered and an allowance of 2 million dong, but in reality, I had to manage my own expenses. Most of this allowance was spent on the whole family. Sometimes, I even had to use my own money to cover household appliance repairs, pay for package deliveries, or give my grandson money when he asked. My son and daughter-in-law were fully aware of this, but they pretended not to know, as if it was only natural and reasonable for me to pay. After 3 years of living at my son's house, I felt less joy and happiness but more frustration and anxiety. Sometimes, I feel like I am not even as fortunate as the housemaid next door. She serves their family, doing the same household chores as I do every day, but she gets a monthly salary, paid leave, and even words of appreciation from her employers. Meanwhile, I get nothing. To be honest, in the 3 years I lived at my son's house, if I didn't have my pension, I truly wouldn't have been able to survive there. In the end, when my grandson finished high school, I used that as an excuse to return to my hometown, so as not to interfere with his studies. My hometown may be quiet, lacking in convenience, not as glamorous as the big city, and without the warmth of family life, but I found living alone there to be much more comfortable and peaceful. At the very least, I didn't have to worry about so many things, nor did I have to endure my daughter-in-law's disregard or risk offending them. After 3 years in my son's home, I finally understood who would truly take care of me in my old age. In the end, only I can provide myself with the best support. Giving birth to a child is a duty, raising them is an obligation, but relying on them is a mistake. Although tradition and law state that children are legally responsible for supporting their parents, if we truly expect our children to fully take care of us, it will never be as reliable as our own pension. The reason is clear. No matter how close the bond between the elderly and the young, living together will inevitably lead to conflicts sooner or later. No matter how filial a child is, after a long time of cohabitation with their parents, some level of friction is bound to arise. These conflicts may be big or small, but they will undoubtedly affect the quality of life. This is something that cannot be avoided. Instead of waiting for that day to come, it is better to take the initiative and care for yourself while you still can. The love of parents is both noble and painful. How pitiful is the heart of parents in this world. They always want the best for their children, yet the final outcome may not always be what they had hoped for. There is a saying, a parent's home is always a home for their children, but a child's home is never truly a home for their parents. This saying may sound bitter, but sometimes it is painfully true, especially in today's society. In this world, perhaps no love can compare to a mother's love. For 9 months and 10 days, she carries her child in her womb, nurturing and protecting them from the moment they are born. She devotes her youth, her health, and her entire life to raising and guiding them. Then, the child grows up, receives an education, and eventually leaves their mother's embrace to pursue a future of their own. They build a family, have children, and the cycle repeats itself. 100 years pass, 1,000 years pass, and nothing changes. But as the child ventures far and wide, caught up in the joys of the world outside, they sometimes forget the old mother waiting in a distant village. The mother who was once strong is now aged and frail, outdated in her ways, and seen as a burden in the eyes of her own child. Just thinking about it brings a deep sense of sorrow and pain. Rely only on yourself. Of course, not all children are ungrateful like the son in this story. But parents should never assume they can depend on their children. To be truly honest, the only person you can rely on is yourself. If your children are filial and care for you, then that is your blessing. If they are not, no amount of effort can change that. The best course of action is to start planning for your own retirement as early as possible. It is never too late. For things you must prepare before growing old. There are certain things we must prepare for while we are still young. If we don't, it may be too late when old age arrives. The first and most important of these is health. If you want to live healthily without relying on medication, Remember these 3 simple things. Maintain a nutritious diet, take care of your physical well-being, and find ways to balance your mind and nurture your spirit. The second thing to prepare is a place to live in old age. If you feel that living with your children and grandchildren leads to too many differences in mindset, lifestyle, and daily habits, causing you to endure hardships, compromises, and unnecessary tolerance, then it is best to move out and live independently for the sake of your peace of mind. It doesn't matter whether it's in a city or the countryside. What matters is that you find a place where you feel happy and comfortable in your later years. The third thing is financial security for old age. Never give away your last penny to your children. They are adults, strong and capable, and fully able to earn a living on their own. Keep a portion of your savings for yourself. This is crucial. Not only will it give you peace of mind, but it will also ease the burden on your children, who have their own families to take care of. You have raised them, supported their education, and helped them build their own families. That alone is enough to fulfill your duty as a parent. Therefore, you must set aside a private fund for your retirement. As long as you are still alive, you are not obligated to distribute your money to anyone. The fourth thing is finding companionship in old age. Do not be afraid to seek out friends to accompany you in your later years. Open your heart and embrace meaningful connections. Those who are single yet know how to enjoy life are truly admirable, aren't they? If you have experienced an imperfect marriage, learn to accept it. After all, it is simply fate and karma from a past life. In this world, it is best to go with the flow of destiny. It is not loneliness that makes people feel empty. It is an empty heart that creates loneliness. But if you fill your heart with a love for life, gratitude, and most importantly, a true faith to rely on, you will find happiness until your final moments. Remember, money is merely external. As the saying goes, people go to heaven while money stays in the bank. So, cherish every moment while you are still here. Life gives you 2 chances to be a child. People say that in life, we get to be a child twice. In childhood, we have no worries, no ambitions, and no burdens to carry. So, when old age allows you to be a child once more, just live that way. You will find that life feels much lighter. A lifetime may seem long, but in reality, it is fleeting. We work, then we rest. We sleep, then we wake. Step after step, blink after blink, and in the blink of an eye, our hair has turned gray. Live in a way that, when you grow old, you can look back and say life was truly worth living, with a heart full of peace and contentment. Dear viewers, do you agree with these thoughts shared by Lost in Time? The editorial team at Lost in Time would love to hear more of your thoughts and stories. So, don't hesitate to share with us by leaving a comment below this video. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you found it meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support not only encourages us but also gives our team the motivation to create even more valuable content. For now, goodbye, and we'll see you in the next video on Lost in Time.
Thank you for listening. See you in the next stories. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to get updates on new videos. Thank you.